Before we get started, please go over to Amazon.com and grab a copy of my book, Education and Justice. If you have an African-American son in public school, you need this book because I teach you the many ways that public schools mistreat African-American boys and what you can do to help your son. So go over there and get your copy immediately. All right, so let's talk about the arrest of William McNeil in Jacksonville, Florida. This case has stirred a lot of attention and a lot of debate online and around the nation. But to really understand what happened and what should have happened, we need to break this down on a legal basis. So I'm going to walk you through the exact law that governs citizen encounters with cops. So we're going to stay rooted and grounded in constitutional law, case law, and Florida statutes. We're going to avoid internet rumors and social media myths. Now, I understand that there's going to be a lot of that in this instance because this case has been dealt with so far in the court of public opinion. And in the court of public opinion, everybody has an opinion, even those who have no legal background whatsoever. But myself as an attorney, I have represented many people in similar situations in both criminal and civil rights cases. And my goal here is simple. I want to help Black men and women across America avoid losing their lives or being charged with serious felony offenses. Now, before I start, let me give several disclaimers. First, this isn't legal advice. This is merely informational. Second, this incident occurred in Florida, and I'm not licensed in Florida. I'm only licensed in Texas. So with those caveats, let's get started. Hey, family. Do you believe in the work we're doing? Does our content speak to you? Do you appreciate our in-depth legal analysis and political commentary from an African-American perspective? Do you believe it matters to our community? Then don't just watch from the sidelines. Please click that membership button and become a member of the 2% Club today. That's right, we need just 2% of our subscribers to become channel members. For just $4.99 a month, that's less than 20 cents a day, you'll help us keep creating powerful content that defends our democracy, demands justice, and develops a strong African-American community. But if you want more, at $9.99 a month, which is only 33 cents a day, you'll get access to exclusive members-only live streams, bonus content, and behind-the-scenes updates. And for just $14.99 a month, which is under 50 cents a day, our top-tier members get access to live Zone calls, strategy sessions, and a direct voice in shaping this movement. We're not just building a YouTube channel. Folks, we're building a movement based on righteousness and justice, just what our community needs in a time of disinformation and division. So if you believe in what we're doing, click the membership button and join now. Become a member of the 2% Club today. Let's build something powerful together. First, let's watch some body cam video. All right. So we see the officer busting the window and then hitting this young man in his face. No provocation, just hit him in the face. Young man puts his hands up, and so he's showing himself not to be a threat at all to these officers. Okay, so they bring him out of the vehicle, and bam, punched him in the mouth. Okay, now, what we're about to look at now is body cam. What we just watched is the young man's video that he made. All right, so the officer has engaged his body cam, but the audio is not on. It's going to be on in just a second. They typically do that. There it is.
Florida 24 Bravo Echo Charlie Whiskey on a silver Kia. I know not this.
All right.
Yes, sir. Is there a reason why you're popping the door open like that?
I don't have a window that works. Is there a reason that you're pulling me over?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a reason why I'm pulling you over. For one thing, inclement weather, you don't have your lights on. Two things, you're not wearing your seatbelt.
It's daylight. I don't need the lights. And it's not weather. It's not raining.
Oh, this is inclement.
It's not raining.
Okay, I'm not arguing with you. I'm telling you why I'm pulling you over. Give me your driver's license, registration, proof of insurance.
No, call your supervisor. Why?
Excuse me?
Call your supervisor. Why did you pull me over?
Tell me 35. I'm fucking with that driver. I've already told you.
Why did you pull me over?
Step out of the vehicle.
No.
Step out of the vehicle. 25 seconds. For not.
All right, so I'm going to comment on all of that in just a moment. Okay? Every bit of that. All right, so let's just keep watching the video for now.
Or the driver just slammed the door and locked it. Yep.
So you can hear the young man from inside telling the officer, telling the deputy to call his supervisor.
Keep your hands where I can see him, sir. Your my camera's on too.
We saw that he raised his hand
I've already told you.
like the deputy told him.
Okay. Right now you're under arrest for resisting.
The officer informs him that he's under arrest.
The longer you take us on, the worse it's going to be. Keep your hands where I can see them,
I've
sir.
represented many people in situations just like this. So I see things a bit different than everyone else.
Sir, this is your last warning to open the vehicle and exit before we're going to break the window. Open the door and exit or we are going to break the window. Open the door and exit or we are going to break the window. No, he's under arrest. Open the door and exit. You are under arrest for resisting. Open the door and exit. You are under arrest for resisting. Open the door and exit. You are under arrest for resisting. Open the door and exit. You are under arrest for resisting.
I'm going to comment on all of what's happening right now.
Vehicle's blocked in. He's locked it up. He's putting the window down. The fact I didn't talk to 25 seconds before.
All right, just keep watching.
Hey, I'm about to break a window. I'm about to break a window. All right, go for it. Exit the vehicle now. Exit the vehicle. Show me your hands.
And we know he did show the officer his hands from the video that he made.
Put your hands behind your back. Hands behind your back. What's wrong with you?
What you mean? I was putting my hands behind my back. I was going to walk.
Ain't no talking now, man. Ain't no talking.
What's going on, man?
You're under arrest. That's what's going on.
Yes, bro. Yes. No reason, bro. You gonna throw my phone like that, bro?
Yeah, I'm going to take it off of you,
man.
bro.
And I'm just trying to have a regular conversation with you, bro.
You just got to see one thing already.
So your partner didn't even ask.
Marijuana in his right pocket.
Yes, it is. So why close the door if you see him pull up?
Now notice they're comparing the scars on their hands from punching them.
25. Can you start rescue? 67. Approximately 30-year-old Bravo Mike. Laceration of it.
Bravo Mike, I believe, means black male. I think. I'm not sure.
No. Oh, yeah.
I've seen situations where the officers, because when they start looking at their hand to see if there are any scars or any wounds, they're going to oftentimes use those wounds that they got from hitting you in the mouth. They're going to use those wounds to bring about a charge of assault on a police officer. Okay? That's how they play this game. All right? So you got to be smart in the way that you play this game. You got to understand the law. All right? So again, so that you don't get killed or so that you don't get jammed up with a bunch of felony charges. As a criminal defense attorney and civil rights lawyer, I've been on both sides of that. I've represented more people than I can count who've gone through very, very, very similar situations. All right, now, let's back all the way up and let's start with the law. Okay? Let's back all the way up and let's look at this legally. So most police encounters with citizens fall into three legal categories. The first category is called a consensual encounter. The second one is called a brief investigatory stop, or what we call a Terry stop. And the third is a full-blown arrest. Now, let's break these down. A consensual encounter. This is the least intrusive kind of police interaction with a citizen. An officer, when doing this, can approach you in a public place and ask you questions or request identification, but you are under no obligation to comply in many, if not most, jurisdictions. You can walk away at any time. There's no reasonable suspicion, no probable cause that is required in this situation. You have the constitutional right, the Fifth Amendment right, to remain silent and not engage with the officer at all. At all. If you're not being detained or arrested and you're not driving, you don't even have to show them your ID in many circumstances, at least here in Texas. And it may be wise. My advice would be in these consensual encounters to ask the officer, am I free to leave? And if the answer is yes, leave. So that's, again, a consensual encounter. Next is the Terry stop, or the investigative stop. And this is what happened to Mr. McNeil, at least in the beginning. It was a Terry stop based on a 1968 Supreme Court case called Terry v. Ohio. And it allows police officers to briefly detain a person if the cop has reasonable suspicion. And reasonable suspicion is where the officer has a belief based on articulable facts that you or the person in question is engaged in criminal activity. That's reasonable suspicion. It's not at the level of probable cause. It's a lower level. But it has to be more than just a hunch. Officers must be able to explain why they stopped you in the first place. Again, this is a Terry stop, and it also gives them the legal authority to pat you down. Not only ask questions, but pat you down to make sure you don't have anything that can hurt them. Now, these stops typically are required to be brief in duration. They are limited in scope. And they are related to basically confirming or disproving the officer's suspicion. All right? So in that situation, you are detained. You're not arrested necessarily, but you are detained and you can't leave. That's a Terry stop. It's a little bit higher than just that consensual encounter. And then next is a full-blown arrest. An arrest occurs when an officer not only detains someone, but actually takes them into custody. Now, an arrest requires probable cause, which means the officer must have enough sufficient facts and circumstances to lead him or a reasonable person to believe that you or the person in question committed a crime. And in Texas, for example, all arrests require a warrant unless there's an exception, like exigent circumstances. Now, all jurisdictions don't require a warrant, but that's the general rule. Now, with that background, let's turn our attention to this incident. And I want to start with what this young man did right. And then I'm going to move into what he could have done better. So let's start with what he did right. First, he did right to record the situation. Florida is a two-party consent state, but the law generally allows citizens to record police officers in public spaces while they are performing their official duties. And it is a very good idea to do so because it protects you, and it can become very powerful evidence later in court or again in the court of public opinion. All right. Second thing he did that was really smart, he asked why he was being stopped, why the officer stopped him. Because you always have the right to know why you're being detained. I mean, a simple question like, what's your reasonable suspicion? To ask an officer that in that moment keeps the encounter focused, and it sort of signals to the officer that you know a little bit about your rights. All right, then he asked for a supervisor. That too was smart. Now, the officer was not legally required to request a supervisor, but asking him to do so shows that, among other things, you're trying to resolve this issue peacefully. But for some reason, you and the officer that is on the spot, you and that officer, the responding officer, you all are not connecting. You're not communicating well. So you're requesting the opportunity to get another set of eyes on the situation and try to talk with that person. I mean, that's wise. But again, keep in mind, in most jurisdictions, to my knowledge, there's no federal state law that requires an officer to respect that request. Some departments, they have that policy. And even then, an officer still has discretion. But it's still wise to do so if there is something you're not understanding. Also, the young man, he kept his hands visible. And this is one of the most critical things you can do in any police interaction. Showing your hands, that reduces the likelihood of the situation escalating to be perceived as a threat. And of course, we know as African Americans, we can do all of this and still end up getting shot. But these things are still smart and wise, and this young man did that. He also remained calm. He never got belligerent. He never got disrespectful. He just asked questions. Now, I'm going to talk about some things that he should have done different or better. But he did remain calm. He didn't become, violent. He didn't scream. He didn't start cussing and so on. And that helped the situation. And that's very important, especially because these officers, quite often, they're already on edge. Some of them have PTSD. Some of them don't even need to be on the force. And so the slightest little thing can trigger them. Many are already jaded, and they see all black men the same. If not just flat out racist, oftentimes they harbor biases. Right? Not all of them, but some. And to better understand how biases work in policing, I recommend that you buy a book entitled Biased, written by an African-American professor, PhD. Her name is Jennifer Eberhardt, and she's been studying this topic for decades. And it's a really good book. She is a Stanford professor. All right? And the young man was also smart to try to run or to flee the scene, any of that. That is really very important stuff. He did a whole lot of things right. All right? So I give him kudos for all of that. Now, here's what he should not have done. And this is real important because I don't want young black men around this country doing anything to get themselves killed. We know how easy it is for these cops to pull out their guns and shoot black men. So we don't want to give them any kind of reason. We want to make it home safe. All right? Now, the things that I'm going to share with you about how or what he should have done, different, I want you to keep in mind that none of what I'm going to point out justifies what they did to him. None of it justifies the punch in the face several times and so on. So I'm not saying that what I'm about to point out justifies what happened to him. There are some people who think that way. Some people, including black people, I had people to tell me this, that when they see a black man getting beat or shot by the police, in their minds, they're thinking they did something to deserve it. And that is crazy. That is crazy. Resisting arrest is a misdemeanor. It does not carry with it the death penalty or the right for them to beat you down. Still, with all that being said, here's some things he could and should have done different. First, it appears that he opened the car door before the officer instructed him to. Why is that bad? Because the officer doesn't know what's going on. He could think that the guy's getting out of the car to do something. So it increased the dangerousness in the cop's mind. Now, he gave a good reason. He said that the window in his on that side didn't work. And so in order to communicate to the officer, he needed to open the door. But it would have been better had he just waited and allowed the officer to instruct him to pull the window down. To open the door, pardon me. Also, it appears that he refused to provide his license, registration, and his insurance documents. That's not a good thing to do. By law, you're required to do so. Okay, there's certain things that you have already consented to by simply having a driver's license, one of which is to provide your driver's license, registration, and your insurance documents. In the state of Texas, you're obligated to identify yourself. And that's all the information, at least here in Texas, that you have to give to the officer. In fact, what I recommend folks do from that point after identifying yourself is to not answer any more questions. Just simply say, I want a lawyer. Just that simple. So he should have provided those documents and his driver's license, registration. And it also appears that he refused to exit the vehicle when the cop ordered him to. That was not good neither. Not only does it heighten the situation, but under Florida law, it is resisting arrest. All right? And then it appears that he shut and locked the door after being ordered out of the vehicle. That was not good. That too just escalates the situation. And it is the basis for them to use a statute in Florida to argue that he resisted arrest. And then it also appears that he didn't comply even after being told multiple times that he was under arrest. So those are the things that he should not have done or should have done differently. Because again, Florida statute definitely requires drivers to present a valid license and proof of insurance. Failure to do so is a violation. Doesn't deserve to get punched in the mouth. But it can definitely escalate situations. His action of closing the door, closing the door and then refusing to exit, that too was not good. None of that was good. Because in Florida, I didn't know this because I don't practice there, but in Florida, you can resist arrest without violence, without doing anything to the officer physical. You don't have to pull away or any of that. You can resist arrest in Florida without doing any of that. Certain things you say, just things you say. Or any kind of action to avoid being arrested is resisting arrest or can be charged as resisting arrest. Now, for more specifics on that, if you are Floridian, please call an attorney in Florida to get more information. Now, kind of answered this already, but let's now talk about who escalated the encounter. Who escalated it? And this is where a lot of the public debate is coming from. So did McNeil escalate the situation or did the officer? I think based on some of the comments I've made already, you're going to conclude that in my mind, Mr. McNeil escalated the situation. Well, my position is they both escalated the situation. Let's start with the officer. Mr. McNeil made a reasonable request repeatedly. He asked for a supervisor, and the officer declined. Now, as I said already, the law does not require the officer, to my knowledge, the state of Florida, to my knowledge, does not require the officer to get his supervisor on the scene. But what would have been wrong for him to do so? It would have been wise on his part. It would have been communal on his part. It could have de-escalated the situation for him just to have gotten a supervisor to talk with the young man. It was clear, it was obvious that that he's an intelligent young man. So he just wanted to get further clarification. But he didn't do it. Despite there being no emergency, no threat, the officer didn't do it. Okay, a call to a supervisor might have diffused the whole situation. So I think that escalated the situation. But all the things also that I've already said about what Mr. McNeil did wrong, he did some good things, but some of the things he did were not good, and those too contributed to the escalation of this situation. All right? And like I said a couple of minutes ago, Florida has a statute where you can be charged with resisting arrest without violence. And I believe that's what happened to this young man. And I think the next day when he went to court, he pled guilty to resisting arrest without violence. All right? And let me clear something else up. Again, I've already alluded to it, but let me just be really, 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 really clear. Really clear. An officer is not obligated to get the supervisor at your request. Now, I believe it is a good thing to do if the circumstances permit it, if there's, no violence going on and no anything that could be harmful to the officer or to somebody else. I believe it's just a good thing to do. It's neighborly, right? But they're not obligated. And that's important because you need to understand that you cannot decide that you're not going to comply with the officer because he didn't get the supervisor. Because you don't have a legal right to speak to a supervisor. And the officer doesn't have a legal obligation to get a supervisor. Now, if that's what his department has in place, a policy like that, then fine. It's up to him. It's at his discretion. And I've already said I think they should do that. But there's no duty to do it. Now, was the arrest justified? Was the arrest justified? And I've already explained to you that with an arrest, the officer needs probable cause. And so the officer felt at the point, I presume the officer felt at the point where Mr. McNeil refused to exit and then locked the door. The officer at that point had the requisite probable cause to believe that Mr. McNeil had resisted arrest without violence. So he then was in a position to arrest Mr. McNeil. Even if Mr. McNeil believed that his rights were being violated, he still should have complied and then challenged all of it in court. I tell folks, you can't beat them out there on the streets. You're probably going to get the short end of that stick. Now, one other question. Was the force used excessive? Now, let me show you how we analyze that. Typically, that is analyzed by referring to two Supreme Court cases. One of them is Tennessee v. Garner. And it essentially says a police officer cannot use deadly force to stop a fleeing felon unless the cop reasonably believes that the fleeing suspect poses an immediate threat of death or imminent harm to the officer or to another person. That clearly was not going on here. All right, and then the other case is Graham v. Connor. And this case says that force can be used, but it must be objectively reasonable. And it must be, again, when you look at all the circumstances, it must be a reasonable use of force just based on everything that's going on. And when courts look at this, the Supreme Court said they cannot do any Monday morning quarterbacking. Instead, they got to look at it from the perspective of a reasonable police officer. So those punches, the question is, were they reasonable? Was that a reasonable amount of force to get him extracted from that car? I don't think so. Because he was not being violent, right? The officers said he had a knife, but he, from what we saw, he made no move toward it. Based on the body cam that we saw, now I don't know what evidence they're referring to. I saw a picture of a knife, but I didn't see anything in the body cam that showed him reaching. What I seen him do, they said, raise your hand, and he raised both hands. And that's when they broke the car window and somebody reached in and punched him and they took him out of the car. So I didn't see him do anything to reach for anything. So a reasonable amount of force, was to bring him out the car, but to then punch him in the face, first and foremost, when he wasn't fighting, had both hands up, and then punch him again once you got him out the car right in his mouth? You had 5 officers out there, I think at least, who could have subdued him and did subdue him, and instead they're punching him in his mouth. The problem is what we look at, what we just saw in the dash cam or in the body cam and in his own video. The problem is the system often will excuse that behavior by officers. Prosecutors often will excuse it. According to the sheriff, they already said the officer violated no law. The grand jury often will excuse it. Judges will often excuse it. The system often excuse exactly what we saw. And that's why these cases are hard to win. So, prosecuting police officers criminally is extremely difficult. The Washington Post kept a database of police shootings for a few years. And over that time, I think about 5 out of all those shootings, only about 5 were indicted and 1 convicted. Because officers just got this built-in bias with the public. And then when you talk about the civil cases, those too are very difficult. There's a bunch of stuff you got to prove, like you got to prove that the officer was acting consistent with his employer's policies or customs. You have a lot to prove. And then they're going to file motions to try to get your case dismissed before it even gets started. And then you got motions for summary judgments that are based on qualified immunity. Qualified immunity. And that shields officers unless there's a clearly established case that says exactly what that officer did was unconstitutional. So to overcome that qualified immunity, what a person must do, what the what the plaintiff's lawyer, what the person's lawyer must do is show that there is a case based on similar circumstances that shows that what that officer did in that case that is similar to what happened in your case was unconstitutional. So you got to show, we the lawyers got to show that the exact conduct that they did to your client was already deemed unconstitutional in a previous case. And if you can't do that, most likely your case is going to get dismissed. And here's the thing. Let me bring this home for you. This is going to get worse. Why? Because of Trump. He already issued an executive order saying that he's going to, among other things, militarize cops. Tried to give them indemnification despite them already having qualified immunity. And he said on the campaign trail that he wants to get cops immunity from prosecution. And when I was talking about this, there were folks who said, well, he can't do that. Really? So we see the U.S. Supreme Court rubber stamping everything he does. We see Congress allow him to do whatever he wants to do. We see him intimidating law firms, We see him intimidating big TV networks, universities, and so on, corporations, and so on. So it's going to get worse. And I say that because if you voted the couch and you are a black person, you were not using your mind. Somebody misled you. And it was those pro-black imposters, which includes not only content creators, but black conservatives who are backing Trump, who are enabling Trump. And so the more they vote the couch or vote for Trump, the more opportunity he gets to make things even worse for black people. So 3.5 years more of this, and God knows where this ends up. So that is a complete, full breakdown, the best that I could do in the amount of time that I allocated to myself to do this video. It's real important, very, very, very important that you understand this so that if you're in this situation, and not only if you're in this situation, but you can talk to your son, your grandson, your nephew, your brother, your husband about the things that I covered here. I didn't want to just get on this video and just say, write the check and pay this man. I do believe they should write the check and pay this man. Don't misunderstand me. But there are some lessons here that I believe can save lives. And to sum it up, what are those lessons? What are those simple lessons? And that young man did a lot of those. He did a lot of what I'm going to say. Record the situation if you can do it safely without interfering with them. Ask questions. Stay calm. Be respectful. Don't run. Don't resist. Basically, get home safe. And then call your lawyer. Because we have a much better chance of winning in court than we do in the streets. I am Reverend and Civil Rights Attorney Augustus Corbett. Thank you for watching this video, and stay woke.